now, and they're forced to retreat. You know, Dreadnought, when I'm feeling it, when I'm absolutely feeling it as a ranged assassin, you know what I go at 13?
What do you go at 13?
Glass cannon.
Why, Jay Howe? Can you tell me, with your positioning, you would take glass cannon?
Because I'm feeling it.
I mean, if you're feeling their fist to your face, because you're taking bonus damage there, baby.
You can't hit me from way back there. I'm not afraid of Phoenix. I'm not afraid of Sergeant Hammer. If I don't get in range and I can just poke you down, I'm just worried about blowing somebody up. Ishbu, throw me some bait here. I got this.
All right, well, that's Crowan's comfortability here being displayed with the glass cannon selection. You are right, though. I mean, he is looking to pop off there with that glass cannon, the Calamity, and the mirror ball damage output. It is, I mean, the only way it gets better is Essa Johan, which we do not need to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. Shaman Camp looks like it's going to be focused and picked up on here by HeroesHearth Esports, and this is that window I was fearful of, right? Again, with the fight dictated on the bottom half of the battleground by HeroesHearth Esports, it is now a lot of question marks for Endemic. Normally, you'd say we'll get a split push, but when this Shrine is sitting right next to mid and bottom fourth, the only force to get that split push on, it makes the answer kind of a bit more grim for Endemic.
Well, the scary part is they don't have that camp to counter the top lane. Sergeant Hammer has to deal with that Shaman camp, and now McIntyre and team, they see that. Once Sergeant Hammer shows up top, they're like, team, look, we've got a 4-on-4 if we still want to take it, if they come over, but Blaze dealing with the mid. Now they can start to open up this lane, soften it up, empower this next Punisher to come in, do some more damage, and start to look towards not just taking the keep wall down, but start looking to take the keep itself and potentially more if they get a pick.
And with the slow kind of play style that I was highlighting that Endemic has, between the Phoenix, the White Mane, Blaze is even pretty effective at being a slow team fight player there with his self-sustain. And Sergeant Hammer, losing sidewalls like this beyond the talent tier disadvantage and things like is a lot more dire than most compositions. HeroesHearth Esports' biggest weakness is they can't engage past the wall. The wall is no longer an option. Endemic's biggest strength is having the wall to defend. And again, when that taken off the table, if you thought it was a grim kind of picture before, it's gotten a lot darker here. Punisher online, 16, still half a level away. Punisher is now online.
BBJ trying to follow up on any stun, any type of combo they can get. Instead, the Punisher baited over nicely to the mid. Will it stay there? It will not. Starting to make its way back as it's clearing out the minions to keep starting to fall. This is still a good position for Endemic, but Cure takes a full combo. There's that glass cannon coming into effect. So Cure, he's going to be forced to Hearth in the middle of that. The keep falls. The Punisher still at 60%. HeroesHearth, they've got their eyes on the prize as they look at the core.
Yeah, core going to be there along with the salvo. Sundering split there as they're trying to get on a big impact. Tether going to land on top of two. The taunt goes down and they get the first kill there onto Blaze. Beakit is next focus there for the reset, but Mike Udall able to heal everyone up. Look at the Warden's Cage along with the flip over. HeroesHearth Esports lockdown 2 members, 68% in counting here on the core as Crowan finds the triple kill there on the reset. And game number 2, ladies and gentlemen, goes over to HeroesHearth Esports.
That looks like the HeroesHearth that we were used to. That definitely looked better.
That definitely felt like it was like, all right, we got the game plan. We're going in with the game plan. All right, the game's over. You know, all smooth sailing here for HeroesHearth Esports from minute 1 to end there. As you see, 11-1 when coming out with those kills. And I feel like a lot of this was draft decision-making, I feel like, on the side of Endemic, and more importantly, just not opening with as creative kind of level 1 in early game as we saw in game number 1.
I mean, the Sergeant Hammer pick requires a certain playstyle. They could never really establish it. And when you get behind with a Sergeant Hammer and you don't have these long, sustained team fights, it's like, look, getting back into a team fight in a hurry doesn't really come out that way. Phoenix, it felt like kind of absent in a lot of that, but you can credit a lot of that. We saw the Sunder for the first time in a while, so Sunder comes in, has that instant value. But Ishbu's play on Garrosh, there wasn't a lot to control him to keep him at bay, because it's a matter of, look, we can blow up the tanks, we can blow up that front line, and they had enough damage between that. It just seemed like all things clicking there for HeroesHearth in game 2.
Yeah, the two things that I really like from HeroesHearth Esports is, number 1, you know, in game 1 you ask, can you ask that of them in this kind of team? This is a moment where I would look at that draft and I go, I don't like your draft on this battleground, right, internationally. But then they play to their draft and they execute clean, and that is exactly that. Again, you can't let that happen at this level of play. We didn't get that from them. They were like, okay, we've picked the skirmish focus composition. We're going to bring the fight to them. When we have the advantages, we're going to force their hand over that bottom 4, and that is those moments that we want to see from HeroesHearth Esports. So that made me a lot more excited, again, based on that return from them and the Western Clash.
Speaking of return, we'll see if Endemic can return when we come back from this commercial break. Maybe take us to a game number 4 and beyond. HeroesHearth up 2-0. We'll be right back.
Long ago, Mephisto, Lord of Hatred, was captured by the Herodrum and sealed within one of 3 soul stones. But his imprisonment was part of a grander plan. Over the course of centuries, Mephisto corrupted the Zakharum priests who were watching over him, manipulating them into freeing him and his primeval brethren. The sinister effects of Mephisto's hatred follow him wherever he goes, whether it be the confines of a soul stone or the cosmos of the Nexus. Mephisto is a ranged assassin who excels at dealing sustained area damage and evading crowd control. Mephisto's trait is Lord of Hatred. Hitting enemy heroes with his basic abilities lowers their cooldown for each hero they hit. Lord of Hatred allows Mephisto to deal a lot of damage as long as he casts his abilities at the right time and hits multiple heroes with each usage. Skull Missile is Mephisto's first basic ability. He conjures an ethereal skull and after a short delay launches it in the target direction, slowing and damaging all enemy heroes in its path. It serves as an effective poke and makes it difficult for enemies to escape from Mephisto's other abilities. Lightning Nova provides Mephisto with another way to deal area damage. He creates a ring of lightning around himself that damages enemy heroes for as long as they are in contact with it. Lightning Nova's damage is increased for each hero it hits. In the right position, Mephisto can inflict some serious pain. Mephisto's final basic ability is Shade of Mephisto. When cast, Mephisto teleports to the target location and deals damage in a small area around him. A Shade of Mephisto stays in his original location until he teleports back to it a short time later. With clever usage, Mephisto can finish off a retreating hero, dodge area damage, and avoid CC. Consume Souls, Mephisto's first heroic ability, reveals all enemy heroes while he's channeling. When the channel completes, all revealed heroes are damaged and slowed. It can act as a powerful finishing move when his basic abilities are unable to kill his enemies. If the damage from Consume Souls doesn't kill Mephisto's enemies outright, his allies will know where to find them and finish the job. Durance of Hate provides Mephisto with a powerful disruption tool. A short time after it is cast, Mephisto unleashes a horde of evil spirits in the target direction, damaging and rooting the first enemy hero they hit. The spirits fan out in search of other nearby enemy heroes, damaging and rooting them as well. A well-timed Durance of Hate can swing an entire team fight in Mephisto's favor.
You are too late!
Mephisto is all about positioning and choosing the right moment to strike. The greater the number of enemy heroes he hits with each of his basic abilities, the more often he can cast them. Lightning Nova in particular has the potential to deal high amounts of damage over the course of a match with the right tactics. Take advantage of clumped up enemy teams, especially when their movement is hindered. Using Shade of Mephisto in clever ways can deal area damage while maintaining an escape route. Mephisto will return to his Shade's location even if he is stunned or otherwise incapacitated, allowing him to be more aggressive than other ranged assassins. At level 13, Mephisto gains access to the Hysteria talent, which upgrades Lord of Hatred to also reduce the cooldown of his heroics. At level 20, the Consumed by Hatred talent causes Consume Souls to be recast if its initial damage kills an enemy hero. Combining these two talents allows Consume Souls to be cast far more often, leaving Mephisto's enemies nowhere to hide. At level 20 is the Shade Lord talent, which significantly upgrades Shade of Mephisto. Not only does it let Mephisto switch places with his Shade, but it also gives him access to all of his level 7 talents, transforming Shade of Mephisto into a workhorse ability that slows enemy heroes, grants him armor and movement speed, and enables some amazing plays. Mephisto, the most cunning of the primevals, has set his insidious plans in motion once again. All will soon bend to his will, or they will succumb to his hatred.
We're back here where HeroesHearth finds themselves up 2-0, but more importantly, MEPHISTO's coming next week, and I've been asking for this hero for 2 years, Dreadnought. That's all that matters. That's all we're going to talk about for the rest of the day.
When do I get the hero I've been asking for 2 years? Blizzard, please.
What is the hero?
I don't know, because I don't keep track enough lore of other games for me to actually desire one. For a long while, my answer was like a roguelike character, and then they made Valeera, so I was like, I don't have an answer anymore.
Valeera still...
a stealth support, you know, hit it with the...
Tyrande.
No.
Yes, she's coming back with Shadow's Dog, but more importantly, we're going to game number 3 here. We're going to find out what battleground we're going to. Dreadnought is a happy camper knowing that Shadowstock reverting some of those changes with that stealth. Endemic Dreadnought taking us, though, to Tomb of the Spider Queen.
I am very happy that we are getting that back, actually, on the Tyrande there. Endemic, though, going to Tomb of the Spider Queen here. Not too surprising. Mike Udall generally is shot-colored and, you know, kind of player. His teams have been more prone to sticking to Tomb of the Spider Queen, so I'm not surprised to see that. By no means is HeroesHearth uncomfortable with that, though. Probably one of the better, not only teams overall in North America, but just in Tomb, they're very comfortable with that as well. So I'm looking for some, you know, kind of oomph, some flavor here from Endemic here, knowing that games 1 and 2, especially game 1, looked good for the first half of it, and then kind of got out of control. Their map selection, everything is on the line here.
It's surprising. This has been the most picked map, or one of the most picked maps for HeroesHearth. So we're seeing a bit of a change up here. It's kind of a mixed bag when we see Endemic picking it up, but as you said, in past, these have been battlegrounds that Michael Udall teams have done well on. We'll see how it does here. It also brings up the question that, you know, we've seen a diverse draft so far of different heroes showing up, but now Jaina, somewhat absent during the Clash, not a lot of Jaina, but this has been one of Jaina's better battlegrounds and something that we've seen. And then something that we saw Eastern Clash bring us was a Kael'thas on Infernal Shrines, but that Nazeebo was picked here on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Kael'thas is a good talking point that I would like to see more of in North America. I'm not sure we'll end up getting a hero in this situation, but I wouldn't mind something of the like there. Again, to kind of have that for Endemic as we see a Deckard ban coming out. This is not a battleground that I would look at the same kind of situation to where the white means power spike maybe will come out. I don't think North America is going to transfer over to the Karzim playstyle so heavily, so it's going to be interesting to see where Endemic wants to prioritize their support, and even when they do, who is it?
Got Stukov, still a hero that, with some of the changes, have taken away some of the oppression that we know that you could use with that infinite growing arm, some of the changes that will come in. Diablo being taken off here by HeroesHearth. We know how strong that hero was at the Clash, and one of the easier battlegrounds, of course. You get souls the traditional way through minions, but you can also get them other ways now with the rework, but definitely a lot easier for Diablo on this one, especially when we look at stun potential. Maiev finally getting the ban.
Getting the ban, and I can't help but feel like HeroesHearth has got to feel, you know, thankful for that, purely based on, I feel like a lot of the momentum gained in game number 1 was based on that Maiev, not only because, you know, the numbers that you were kind of given before, but I feel like when you said that and then watching them play against Maiev, I feel like one of the biggest problems HeroesHearth has is when they see a Maiev on the other side, they very rarely are second-guessing their positioning whenever they get the initiation on their opponents, and then almost always you see, you know, the shadow comes out, they get the follow-up 3-man tether, and it's like all of HeroesHearth Esports, they thought they were winning the fight, and it quickly turns. So taking that away, not going to have that problem at least available. Deckard's the only other player or character that I feel like does that really well, and he's banned out too. So 2 counters at least off the table for Endemic.
Oh, Genji making a return here. It has been one of Big E's strongest heroes traditionally. We know he has a big impact on that hero. Something that I remember there was a Tomb of the Spider Queen game one time with Biggie just ripping through people, and it was like, Genji let through. Let's not let him through anymore. We'll see if he can maybe recreate some of that magic here. Get some of that magic juice.
Puts a lot of pressure on his shoulders, though, considering it is Tomb of the Spider Queen. and that he is the Genji. So his off-lane pressure or his 3-2 split in his lane rotations from Endemic pretty much have to be on point from the start of the game. And again, this is what we kind of asked from them in game number 1, and in the mid-game we saw them kind of give up that mid-game pressure that they needed to be successful there. Team of the Spider Queen is far more difficult than any other battleground to identify those elements to be able to maintain that pressure and maintain that kind of control. So what I'm just trying to highlight here is that though I do like the direction we get from Endemic, this is just painting a very improbable picture based on what we've gotten from them so far in this series.
I think it's important to note that one of the old combos that we would see was that Genji Chromie combo on something like Tomb of the Spider Queen. More prominent in EU, but it did show up here from time to time. Chromie, this is the changes to Chromie, as we're going to see the Muradin ban. But for Endemic, there's still the Garrosh available if they need that frontline tank, maybe that initiation for the taunt. But as you had mentioned, and we've been talking about already, the Anub'arak is great at getting the dive and creating a stationary target for Genji to potentially swift strike through. We'll see if that comes in, especially knowing that Johanna not as easy to take down in this situation. There's our Nazeebo.
I'm sorry, but we get the Nazeebo, but I don't feel the same way about the little Nazeebo in this type of situation here, J-How. A lot of what I just, harped up on my last point, Nazeebo doesn't do that. He is so the opposite of the playstyle, and this is one of those moments where I get torn, and it's like their opening is so much skirmish-oriented, packing the punch, bringing the fight level 1, and then you've got a guy who's just going to throw out jars until 20 minutes, and then he's going to be a huge problem. But it's like, but then what is Genji going to be at that threshold? Yes, you could argue, well, it's a curvature of spiking, right? Is the Genji, oh man, we got so much more to talk about. As you say, the Genji falls off, the Nazeebo comes in, but it doesn't typically work out that way. So I don't know if that is going to be enough at this point in time. Zombie walls are not as impactful, especially knowing that we got an Abathur and a Tracer picked up in the last rotation.
Who do you even dare? I mean, Condemn can pull everything in. Dahaka.
Slow. You need like an ETC, actually. This is one of the few situations where I would promote picking an ETC because that Abathur Tracer pick, the slower the game, the better for Endemic. Okay, slow, but not exactly the direction you would expect. I like this, a little bit more curious when it comes to the team fighting, and definitely more stoppable when looking at the heroics.
Boy, things got spicy.
They did. They got a little wild, huh?
I don't even know what to make of post-second ban at this point. And we get a Nazeebo Malfurion. And you think Malfurion no longer has Ice Block, so we get a Tracer coming out, but we get an Abathur. Not just an Abathur Tracer, which we saw in HeroesHearth's fateful last game that they lost on Dragonshire, but we get it this time on Tomb of the Spider Queen, which is not, I think the last person I've seen it do it on Tomb of the Spider Queen is maybe ADRD over in Europe, and that's about it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, and normally when you would see this, I would argue, well, that has got to be with heavy emphasis towards pressure towards bottom lane. It's going to be picking on them and making sure they have the kill potential, but that's what Genji's job has to be throughout this game. So I feel like the Abathur Tracer is just going to be, it's going to be a Genji tracker, and it just goes, Genji, you're not going to have fun with your entire time. As long as you keep track of his flow and his rotations, they aren't worried about the early game. But then late game things get a little bit wild. Where at first I was like, in the later stages with this Nazeebo, how do I feel? But they commit to a solo support Abathur. And I'm no wizard. I haven't done all the numbers. I haven't gotten to play this matchup that much, but I'm pretty confident a late game single Spider will out-trade a shield pretty frequently.
We're going to find out. It's time for game number 3. Seeing if this solo support Abathur can bring it to a close here for HeroesHearth. And we've seen the Abathur ban in the first 2 games, and this is why as Endemic they're going to see if they can deal with it. I'm just wondering, what in the world can you possibly kill for Genji? And where do your spiders land?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question to ask, right? It's like, what do you do in the early game? And the answer is for Endemic, you don't. You just let it go, because once the Abathur was picked up, the only concerns that you have is the early game skirmishing and major macro pressure, which between the Phoenix, the Tracer kill potential with the Abathur, and keeping track of the Urel Genji type trade on the bottom half of the battleground, it should be pretty reliable for HeroesHearth Esports to depend on that. So Endemic, that's why I said they needed a slower support, or a slower warrior, expecting the ETC over the Tyrael, but they both make the same thing happen. Get to the later stage of the game without losing those trades, and then rely on your late game Nazeebo spike. And it should be noted that originally I go, this is a hole in Endemic's comp until you get the Abathur, and then suddenly it changes the entire approach for this game for Endemic. So this has been a doozy, but we'll see how it happens here, as we already have the off-lane pressure being displayed by McIntyre in that bottom lane. And Endemic keep up the 1-4 standard.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that you can do. Obviously, having the Phoenix gives you the flexibility to have wave clear in multiple lanes, but this is going to be a good job for BKid on that material to provide that shielding, try and win out those lanes. And as you pointed out, Arthlon on the Tracer does give you that early game kill potential, not necessarily through the pulse bomb, but through the overall continued harassment that we'll potentially be seeing.
And so if Endemic really wants to next level this early laning situation, what they should be doing is recollecting themselves over mid and then making a transfer towards bottom. And giving up the pressure on the top half, making sure that their bottom lane can remain even. It's about every one or every 2 lanes, you want to stagger it to go the opposite side to be able to match that trade, because otherwise HeroesHearth Esports is still gaining just about as much out of the earlier stages, and the biggest thing that Endemic needs to be focusing on is stalling it out. At first, again, based on how the draft went, that was a very different approach, but now should be the thought process, and that's what we see with the transfer down below. This is, I mean, it's not revolutionary, but I'm impressed with the early stages here from Endemic.
Caster curse right on cue. Somewhere back there, bro, Sidon's like, look, I'm about to click on this. Dread, I hope you don't finish this sentence. Well, too bad. Caster curse is real. First blood here by HeroesHearth.
And that was taking advantage of the rotation towards bottom that I wanted to see from Endemic. I still would say that it was a very clever transition, and so far their laning process has been, you know, well thought out considering the adjustments of HeroesHearth. But losing the Zebo is going to be a setback. Not too big of one here, as the Web Weavers are going to be turned in. 21 gems on the side of HeroesHearth Esports. As long as Endemic can slow that down, make it even towards the 10 fight, and ideally actually get the first Web Weaver phase into their favor, they're going to be okay. The biggest thing you don't want to do if you're Endemic is make the mistake of turning in pre-7, pre-8, and then not forcing a siege over a fort. The minute that happens, you're going to have the mule problem. You're going to have this constant Sky Temple trade-off that you never want to deal with, especially knowing the wing conditions, again, are kind of blurry on Team of the Spider Queen.
It's been tricky. I mean, obviously we saw the heavy emphasis on fort walls prior to the experience changes, and you and I noted the early Web Weaver phases were so strong. It was weird, though, because if you got them too early, then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, this isn't worth it. But now it's even more noticeably so, is depending on your timing. You know, I think it was at Western Clash, I saw a team pick up Web Weavers at like 4.5 minutes and it had almost no impact. And it's like, yes, getting the first turn in can be good, and you got to get, but you have to confirm structures. You got to have the sieging capabilities. I don't think Endemic really has that in the early game. Obviously, you know, you can get the push power with this, but there's so much on the other side with HeroesHearth.
So far, pressure over bottom, though, from HeroesHearth Esports has been working out. Endemic hasn't really been able to do too much when it comes to the answers towards that lower section of the battleground. They have made the transition, as we said with the Giants before, but other than that, big impact has actually just been bullied around with that Tracer to Haka matchup, and that is a huge win, considering not only is it HeroesHearth Esports winning when it comes to the kills with that one pick within Zebo because of that rotation, but they're winning on turn-ins too. This is, again, those winning small things on every part of the battleground for HeroesHearth Esports that is going to open this game up out of control, and with the adjustments in the draft in the solo support Abathur, this is anything but what you should expect at the earlier stages of this game.
Not able to get the denial there, and BKid now he's in trouble. I don't know if BKid actually makes it out of here alive. There's gonna, oh, just able to shield up. You know, this is something I've never seen, or at least I don't remember the last time I saw in the Zebo. Hexed Crawlers at level 4, not going into your trait where you get the bonus health and mana, and it's just a cumulative total over time, which seems to be the #1 on this one. But this gives you 1% of your health and mana back whenever they attack an enemy hero. And it goes back to our earlier conversation in draft. What hero are you landing these jars on? Because there's no real, I mean, Johanna and Dahaka are the easiest targets you can get. And in the middle of a team fight, when it's desperation time, can you land them?
I think another concern to highlight is that there is no major crowd control to enable those spiders to get a lot of damage out. Malfurion Roots is actually the only thing to lock anybody down to make sure the spiders get as much damage output as they possibly can. Mikey Doll trying to cut away will eat a pulse bomb here. Arthlon with that Abathur hat. It's only a matter of time there. Beautiful Root forcing out the recall there. Now McIntyre maybe has a brush stock out. No crowd control available, and he will survive, but HeroesHearth here getting a lot there out of that first Web Weaver phase. Great punishment over that bottom fort.
Getting a fort with your first Web Weavers at 5 minutes in, just under 5 when they spawned, with an Abathur composition. It's not something we get to analyze too often, but if you were to present that to me before this started, I would say, yeah, it's not going to happen. But it did happen.
And that's again, I want to bring back to the laning situation. When we looked at how the lanes kind of unfolded for HeroesHearth with the 3-2 split. Hold up, though. Genji going to get locked down by that drag, unable to swift strike out. Dansky trying to get a retreat here. That's going to be another kill. 10 still not picked up here for HeroesHearth, but definitely creeping as they get those 2 extra kills. A couple of gems lost by Endemic. Now about 15 out of range for a Web Weaver phase themselves.
That's tough.
It's gone from good to great if you're a HeroesHearth Esports fan. Not so much for Endemic as this game is kind of furthered.
Yeah, they've managed 6 total gems turned in, and they've continued to lose them throughout the process. And with this amount of a lead that we see from HeroesHearth, we've seen the rotations from the Genji, things of that nature. We don't even see Mule picked up here. They're not even worried about that threat there or the potential long-term of this game. They're going to control the rotations, get the slow on that, as you can see, already having an impact there. As McIntyre comes over to get the interrupt onto Kira, and with level 10 here, Endemic, I think they got to get out using that old DURANCE.
Yeah, it's in their best interest to just try and hold on to 10 as long as they can. The race to 10 without losing anybody in the process in a Web Weaver phase, possibly to boot. Unlikely to be able to deny all the Web Weavers, though, as you see channel attempts from everybody here, but not enough to confirm, at least not yet, as Crowan still starting it up. Who has the rest of these gems here, J-Ho?
It's got to be Tracer coming over. Yeah, she's kind of absent on the mini-map there, but it's got to be coming in for that turn-in. They do have enough. They also have this camp here. They can dive right behind this. Blast Shield is available if they want to rip it. The other thing to consider here, we're contemplating Salvo or Planet Cracker. Planet Cracker does do well to defend against Web Weavers, but it can also follow up a tremendous amount of CC, which you're only going to get through really the Blast Shield and a drag. So it's a commitment,
It is.
and they want to go with it. Just missed the mark on that one, though.
Planet Cracker is just, you know, a big line to be worried about at that point in time. The line of scrimmage there. Endemic was able to make it back. The biggest thing is that HeroesHearth has been able to defend these giants the entire time here as these Web Weavers have descended, making this bottom lane a high threat as the Knight's still over on mid. Cure doing his best to be able to rid of those as this bottom fort, or keep front wall, excuse me, is already going to be rid of here as Endemic still out of reach for their heroics. J-Ho, at this point, I would not be surprised if we see just a split push Abathur build. Like, the lead is so far ahead on Tomb that you can just keep up this oppressive advantage with these skirmishes just going into those. That in mind, most people would argue will still dread, you know, going with the hat build is going to provide more of those team fights that you're absolutely necessary and needed. But that is how big of a lead HeroesHearth Esports has at this point in time.
Well, we're about to find out because it would start here at 13.
Give me the
No
Locust Splash auto attacks. Dang it.
They're just getting leashed all over the place here.
Giving him, yeah, don't choke, dude. I keep walking into my mic
Dreadnought
cord.
forgets he's not on a wireless headset.
And
so.
I walk into my mic cord. Welcome back to the HGC.
Don't worry. I started off the day that way as we find our way back in. And HeroesHearth, they're finding their way back in here in week number 6, our first back from the clashes. And Endemic Dread, they're still sitting on only 6 turned in. Cure looking for a fight. Here we go.
Judgment's going to go in on the back line with that Ravenous Spirit, gaining quite a bit of value into the choke. The Planet Cracker thrown down. Mikey Dahl is going to end up dropping X-Strike on the back line. Big impact, unable to escape there. Swift Strike attempt available, but 3 members of Endemic end up going down here in HeroesHearth Esports. Looking to take advantage here of this middle night camp, likely to at least get some poking and prodding there onto the keep. And now 16 gems away from a Web Weaver phase.
Yorel got a substantial turn in. Now they're only 1 away. But is it going to be too little too late? Because at this point, you don't have a lot in reserve. And so you're going to lose a keep here mid, which means that your mid lane pressure is basically nil. And so now you start thinking, all right, we just are going to use it to establish control, or at least reestablish some form of control over the map. But then you look up and it's 15 to 11. 16 is almost here for HeroesHearth. They almost have a turn in. And for Endemic, do you even get another chance for a turn in? It's just HeroesHearth in the driver's seat in this game. No support needed.
The beautiful thing about this composition from HeroesHearth Esports is it pretty much needs to snowball the game in this control, in this manner. I was so worried about the later stages of the game, but with their off-lane pressure, with Endemic not responding to it proper, and then now that they made it to the stage, they are very, very oppressive, and there's very few things that can be done. Amazing drag there over the wall from McIntyre, maximum range. Ends up blocking down Mikey Dahl for the first kill there, second with that Feeding Frenzy value. Isolation there, Dansky ends up going down, and Web Weavers were picked up for Endemic in the downtime, but it is merely just going to be a distraction here for HeroesHearth.
I'll be surprised. Endemic just getting to 13 seems like a reach. They have catapults for HeroesHearth defending mid lane. We know that's going to be neutralized quite a bit. Bot lane is pushed out all the way to the keep, which means those web weavers aren't going to make it very far. Top lane will be worked on momentarily. And HeroesHearth, 16 will be picked up in a moment, and just dominance. I mean, there's no other way to put it at this point. This is sheer dominance from HeroesHearth.
And a lot of that is down to the early game stages of how it was played by Endemic, and then compositionally they needed to be successful over the beginning half, or more importantly, just stopping HeroesHearth from being the absolute bullies that they were over the laning phase and that first web weaver phase. An Abathur composition, first web weaver phase with no support can get the first fort against you. That is just, again, something that we should not be able to hold true, and part of the reason that this game is as dour as it is. But HeroesHearth Esports, now that the web weavers have cleaned, Endemic may round the 13 talent tier, but they'll be able to force the web weavers themselves.
See if they make a play towards a camp, maybe try and just empower push. Go for that big play now. I mean, you're going to have 16 to 13 during this push. Do you get a camp? Do you get siege? Do you get knights? It's just a matter of the world is your playground right now. They are going to send Tahaka to the bottom to get that siege camp. And we know that that should help guarantee a keep, but it's a matter of HeroesHearth. At this stage of the game, 1 keep minimum, 2 keeps max, but not max, but core should be max at this point.
Yeah, and let's say in a worst case scenario, all that doesn't happen. HeroesHearth Esports, because they've just burnt the rest of the web weavers and their experience should be such a big advantage. Boss is their next call immediately after that, and then you either force the lethal on the win condition or at least confirming that secondary keep. Well, look at this transition, actually. HeroesHearth, you can tell that they're more concerned with that play possibly than any other here. Cure maybe out too far. Arthlon is going to be there. Look at that. McIntyre with the